You may have heard that Jeff Bezos has a new truck coming to market, and it's going to cost only $20,000.
An
This
electric truck, though.
An electric truck. This is huge news, and we want to jump right into it and what that means for the automotive market. But first, welcome back to episode 6 of the Car Coach Reports podcast. I'm Paul.
And I'm Lauren. Thanks for joining us. Lots going on. You know, that whole Slate truck, I saw the reveal. I was invited. I couldn't go. I had a conflict. But the fact that Bezos is involved, the first thing that came to my mind is, why the hell wouldn't you sell it through Amazon?
Oh, yeah.
And then you could just go to Amazon like we all do, even though you try not to. We all go to Amazon and you order it. You could have it at your doorstep tomorrow morning. Ha-ha. That would be brilliant marketing.
They tried to put that program into place, and I think they delivered a couple of cars. I'm not even sure if the program still exists.
It does for Hyundai. They were super smart. Hyundai is selling cars through Amazon. So you can go test drive it, figure out what you want, order it through Amazon, and then pick it up at the dealer.
Shows up in a box with a smile on it.
That would be cool. But no, you got to get it at the dealer.
That was the original concept, and it just didn't.
I know a bunch of people have done spoofs on that, but which would be fun.
They tried to do car parts as well too, but actually this would make sense because the whole concept behind the Slate EV truck is that it's small. You could fit it inside the room that we're in right now. Actually,
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Probably 2 or 3 of them actually.
Yeah.
And they're fully customizable for.
Yeah, you make what you want.
Yeah, they don't come with screens or speakers or a spare tire.
Crank windows.
Yeah, they have crank windows.
Remember those? I do.
So it's really cool that they're offering something like this because 20, 30 years ago, you could order a truck like that.
Okay, I'm going to date myself. There was a Sears and Roebuck catalog, and it used to be like this thick, and you could order a house. And so this is like when they first came out, and you could order, you get S&H green stamps too. So you would go through and you would say, oh, I want this house and I want this, this, and this. You'd order it and it would be shipped to you, and then you would have someone build it or you'd build it yourself. It was actually a pretty brilliant idea. But that same concept goes along with cars. Again, brilliant idea. It starts as a pickup truck. You can make it an uncomfortable 2-row SUV because they're really small.
Yeah, like an old Blazer.
Right. You can make a sport back. We could make a regular SUV back. We could just use it as a pickup truck. But it's really stripped down. It reminded me of something that you would use, like you would get in China. Like if you order, because in China, they sell cars like that. But there's 122 different manufacturers in China, of which many of them won't survive.
I was going to say it's like you could buy those base model like Chevy trucks. I think a lot of people did that. The ultra base model like the Ranger, and you could get it with no options at all.
Yeah.
Crank windows. It even came with a radio, though. The Slate doesn't come with a radio.
Well, everyone uses their phone.
And
so
that's the point.
All you need is to connect your phone. You don't even need navigation. We all use either Apple Maps or Google Maps or whatever. And who needs to do that? I mean, it's gotten to the point that you can use your phone for everything but driving the car. You could probably use your phone to start the car. Again, I'm sure it has a key and not a key fob. We don't know that yet because there's a lot of stuff that's still questionable.
Well, you can start like your Tesla, or Hyundai's got the card that's like you put in your wallet, and you can use that to start your car.
Ford has that too. Ford has the My Key.
I think is it Genesis? They have the thumbprint.
Yes, they have visual recognition and also fingerprint recognition. But a lot of brands are doing that.
So there's a lot of options around, like, how do you save money? Well, don't have a key fob. Just have some sort of NFC chip that,
Oh, yeah.
And
like Lucid. Lucid does that.
Yeah, exactly.
We actually had a Lucid, and we used the chip to start the car, and it was really weird because you're not used to it. Or the new Volvos. You don't even need a key. It just knows because you got a proximity key, and when you sit in the seat, it knows there's weight. It knows you belong to this car. You put your foot on the brake and drive away. You don't even start the car. There's no start. There's no push button. It's really weird.
Right. The screen lights up. The car's on, and you drive.
It knows it's you because of the card. So, I mean, in this case, you're going to have some pretty basics. There was a truck company, and now I can't remember the name of it. It was owned by, I believe, the Chinese. Now I wish I looked it up. Darn it. You can put it down in the comments below. They attempted to get on the North American Truck of the Year, and we test drove it, and it had nothing in front of you other than a little gauge pod and a steering wheel, and it was designed to be not for consumers necessarily, but more for fleets. That was the whole concept. I think they're a lot of business too.
I'm not remembering. I know there's another small, like, ultra compact truck that just launched. I think it's also a Chinese vehicle. It's called like a Tello. I think I just heard about it.
Now I'm
So we
making
should
a
write
list.
the- we
I'm
should write
making
the
a
10.
list. I'm making a list of vehicles. It'll come to me of vehicles that had really great product, had really great packaging and marketing, but died off over the years. And I'm not going to go all the way back to like Pierce Arrow and Thomas Flyer. I'm going to do more of the current modern vehicles that
Relatively modern.
that we know, like Saturn.
Yeah.
They had great marketing, no negotiation. Come in, buy the car.
Actually, their ads were really good. You go
And
back
they
and look
had
at them.
good consumer engagement.
Yeah.
They had parties and events and festivals. And then General Motors ran into financial troubles, and that was the first thing they shut down, although the product wasn't great. It was
The marketing was better than the product.
the marketing was fantastic. I would say
before we dig too deep into
Yeah.
why we're talking
Yeah.
about the
we're
failures.
talking about all
Sorry,
kinds of
back
stuff.
up one step.
All right.
So the Slate's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Fully customizable. You can get speakers, screens. You want to
Stickers,
You
decals.
can just get a mount for your phone, or you can get a small screen or a big screen. You
Mhm.
can get some speakers, more speakers. If you want a cage like a Bronco, if you want an SUV like an old Blazer,
You can put like roof racks on it.
yeah, you
Cool
want to
thing-
go off road.
What's the name of the model? Do you know?
What? No, did I miss that?
You name it whatever you want.
Oh, yeah.
So you want to call it the Paul? It's the Paul. I want to call it the Lauren. It's the Lauren.
I don't think the Paul rolls off the tongue very well.
Neither does a Lauren. But you could make it the Fix.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm driving the Fix.
It's really cool.
Do whatever you want. You can name it your name. That
Yeah,
would be
we'll
totally-
we'll put a link to the Slate reveal video below.
Did a nice job.
I think that if you're interested, go and watch it. $20,000 for if you need nothing. I need transportation. I'm not going very far. I need something simple. EV works for me. That's fine.
If there's a caveat to that, though.
Yes, before that, go check it out. It's cool.
It is cool. And my friend Jeff works there. I won't say his last name. He's probably watching. But
Jeff.
nice guy, really smart, got a great opportunity to be involved in the marketing side of this. And I think if nothing more, even if it fails, I think what's cool about it is it put something in manufacturers' minds to stop building cars that are so unaffordable and build cars that the masses can afford, much like Ford did with the Model T.
I was even going to say the Mustang, because the Mustang was the most customizable car in the market.
Right.
For
3 body styles,
time.
convertible coupe, fastback. What do you want? How do you want? Do you want a big engine? You want a small engine? What interior do you want? You want
There's
a pony
a million
interior?
combinations. Mini was like that too.
Yeah.
You-
Oh, I love.
combination of
And we've
whatever.
owned a bunch of minis.
Yeah, and whatever
And
combination of
Mustangs
specs
over
that
the
you
years.
want, because everybody's needs are different for what kind of vehicle they want.
Mhm.
And I think that's a cool opportunity here. Now, here's what Jeff Bezos needs to do.
Here, there's a caveat. Do you want to tell them the caveat?
Well, I don't know what you're going to say, but I was going to say it should have a motor.
I think it should have a range extender, 100%.
No, not even a range extender. I think that he would lower the weight, which would make it more economical and cheaper by taking out the electric
What
battery.
kind of motor would you put in?
I would probably go to like Toyota or Honda, get a 3-cylinder turbo.
Just some little teeny thing.
Yeah, like a.
It's not about power. It's
yeah.
not a race car.
Just
It's
get a-
meant for getting.
Just
made
get a
to be.
1.6-liter turbo.
You could put a scooter motor in it.
You could, or a motorcycle motor.
Right, because the thing is, that's what they do in India. And, in India, they ride on scooters. They're like 6 people hanging on a scooter. Okay, here's my caveat, a little different.
All right.
The $20,000 price is based on having that $7,500 tax credit.
Mhm.
And if you're watching this when we post this live on Sunday, this coming week will be the final decision from the CRA, which we covered on Friday's video. So if you haven't seen it, please go back and look at it. The end of the electric car mandate, part of that is no more $7,500 tax credit, no mandate. And so that's going to make electric cars even more expensive. And without that $7,500 tax credit, some states will offer some sort of incentive. For example, California ran out of money for their $2,000 additional. New York ran out, and then Kathy Hochul, who's the governor, just put $3 million or something. It was
was a lot.
crazy amount of money to give you another opportunity to take a bite at the apple of $2,000 credit. So if the federal tax credit goes away, which it will, 100%. Lee Zeldin said it will. Sean Duffy from NHTSA said it will, and President Trump said it will.
Even if
It's
the CRA,
going.
even if the CRA doesn't pass and
Oh, it
the
will.
and the CARB waiver
It will.
gets repealed, which I think it will. But even then,
Mhm.
with no additional incentive money being pushed through, because that's a given, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
The incentive money is going away unless the states individually decide to do
Well,
that.
then, yeah, but that's only until they run out of funds. Like New Jersey ran out of funds, Massachusetts ran out of funds, Illinois ran out of funds.
Yeah.
And so you, as a buyer, think, I'm going to buy this new cool Slate. I'm going to get the $7,500 tax credit plus my $2,000 from my state. That's $9,500 off the price. That's how you get to that $20,000 price point.
And they did say that specifically, even in the announcement video that
They were
you
honest.
mentioned.
They were 100%
They
honest.
said
U.S. made.
It's $20,000 with the tax incentive. So what that means is that if you're not living in a state that has an additional tax incentive for an EV, then the new
You're on your
Slate
own.
with 0 options, with nothing in it. It's
25 grand, right?
it's $2,750, $27,500
Right, to start.
to start with nothing in the vehicle, nothing.
Well, there's obviously not a lot of profit margin.
And to be fair, there are vehicles that you can buy for less than that are not EV
Okay.
that offer more,
So
like the Maverick.
if I give you $27,000, you could buy a Maverick. Great truck, by the way. They're selling them like crazy, and I have a new one coming on Wednesday, so you'll have a review coming. You could also probably buy maybe a stripped-down Ranger. You could buy
If you
a
if you need a
Nissan
truck.
Frontier.
Yeah.
You could buy. There's a lot of things.
But
And if you wanted a
basically,
car,
maybe.
if no options, manual transmission, which is what I would prefer anyhow.
Mm.
I think there's a lot of and used. The field is open. I mean, as far as cars, you could buy used F-150. You could buy used Chevy, truck. There's a lot of Ram or whatever. There's a lot of vehicles out there.
Yeah.
So I think that the $27,000 price is still high. The only way for them to lower the cost, I think, would be to actually look at using a motorcycle motor, which they could probably get a deal with Harley.
And that's what I'm saying,
or
something
with-
small. The vehicle's
something
very,
made here in the
yeah,
U.S.
the vehicle's very small.
Yeah.
But the reason I suggested Honda or Toyota is because they already make small 3-cylinder engines. Actually, Ford might too.
You know who would really be a good fit for that? Nissan. They're in financial trouble, huge. We've covered this on the network. They have the ability to supply motors. And they also make fuel-efficient motors in a lot of their Nissan vehicles like the Sentra. If you were to use that, I think you'd be fantastic. I think you'd sell a lot of them.
Right. And again,
Consumers would step up. That's what's missing. There's no reasonably priced new product available, which it was the mindset behind Slate. All U.S. built, all U.S. suppliers.
with the tax credit, the Slate is at the base model. Again, I want to
everyone's
emphasize,
going to want more than crank windows.
nobody's going to pay $20,000 for a Slate unless you need
will be some.
nothing. You know what I mean? I'm
In
painting,
general, yeah.
I'm painting broad strokes here. I feel like the average price for that vehicle with options that people actually want is going to be somewhere between $25,000, $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
That includes the tax credit.
And you have to pay sales tax. Nobody gets around sales tax.
Yeah.
So, and of course, some states are more expensive. Some are charging additional fees for electric vehicles, like Texas and Oregon and Washington State charge by the mile taxes, some up front, some as you use them. So I think the concept of offering a $20,000 vehicle, which there used to be like a Kia Rio or the Mitsubishi, which they barely sell product here anyhow, but what the heck was it? They had a little, I forgot the name. It was like a Mio or something like that. It was a little teeny weeny, like a smart car. Another one that's no longer.
Smaller than the Mirage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would have been, that's your car for I'm a new driver. I don't have money. I'm going to school. I'm in high school. I'm in college. I don't have a
There's
job.
nothing like that anymore. I need the
No.
cheapest car available, and
Something reliable.
cars have gotten so expensive. You mentioned this earlier. There's so much additional safety tech and convenience tech and connectivity, cameras, signals that go out, Wi-Fi in the car, all the additional
You don't need
space
all
you
that.
need. Right. All of that extra metal for crash protection and
Well,
sensors.
that you do. That you do.
But what I'm
Crash
saying is, like,
protection's kind of important. Yeah.
Cars have been very safe for the last 20 years.
That's
They've
an
gotten
interesting
safer,
question.
but all
Is
that
this-
extra
The
stuff.
Slate is so stripped down. There's got to be airbags. That's
Of
required by
course-
NHTSA.
I'm so
Oh,
positive.
like side impact door beams. That all has weight. Having a structure of a vehicle.
I think that's why it's electric.
I have a friend who's got a Subaru who was just in a really bad accident.
Yeah.
I was on his podcast a week ago, and it's Red Pill 78 if you're interested. Interesting content. And he got hit by a guy in a SUV, but also a Tacoma was involved. It was a huge wreck. And the Tacoma, which is brand new, which I thought was super top rated safety according to what we see, was destroyed.
Yep.
And so all of that has to be put into, of course, has to do with speed and angle, and there's a million other factors.
but also-
Toyota makes great product.
They're designed to be crushed now.
Right. So the car gives itself up for the human. But what about the Slate? They said it's been crash test rated. You know where they crash test them, don't you? Here in Buffalo.
Yeah, at Calspan.
You're at Calspan.
Yeah.
So we're literally up the street. So sometimes you can look over the fence and see some cool
So
stuff.
I think that the reason why they're not so worried about the weight is because it's electric. You already add so much weight.
If you have an accident, that thing's trash.
It is, but
Because of the fuel cell, because of the
would-
cells, battery cells underneath.
it would be trash anyway. But
Well, true.
I think that because the electric batteries offer so much torque,
Mm-hmm.
that it can overcome whatever weight disadvantage it might have because it's also so small. So it's kind of that like engineering balancing act of the designer sitting there and saying like, what's the weight to size to aerodynamics to power delivery to, friction loss and things like that. And figuring out that, you know what, it's not that big a deal.
So here's something interesting. So we are here in the U.S. Now I have a friend who lives in multiple countries. You know who I'm talking about.
Mhm.
He has a home in Turkey. He's got a home in Puerto Rico. He's got a home in Sweden.
So what do you say?
First thing he said was, I want one of these. I said, well,
He hates EVs.
he hates EVs, but he likes the price point.
Okay, that's fair. So I think
Because he thought,
He just wants
hey,
to see
if
it.
I'm in Turkey or I'm in Puerto Rico and I just need to run to the store and get a few items, this is certainly on my list. And I find it interesting because typically you wouldn't put a child safety seat, which he has a child that's still of that age, that I can't see it going in the passenger side. That's going to be interesting because typically no child safety seats in the front seat, so they have to have a
They would have to
three-row
go in-
portion.
it would have to go in the back seat.
Right, or you just use it for yourself. You're running errands.
But like
But I
you can put-
found it interesting, and a friend of mine in Germany who also has a fleet of really cool cars, who's probably watching, I will say that he also found it interesting. But the rest of our little brain trust was like, hard pass, no.
Mm.
And that includes me. I would never buy a car like that. I want to build something cool like a Mini or a Mustang or a pickup truck or something. I have issue with the fact that you're going to buy a car for 20 grand and now you got it. And it's cool. You built it your way. You named it what you wanted. You made it look what you want. What do you do for service?
That's a good question.
There's no service. There's not going to be dealer network.
No, you
It's
would,
going to be like buying a phone.
you would have to. No. It wouldn't.
be
It would be like
worse.
that. No.
It'd be like buying a Chinese.
No. No. It would be like buying a Tesla.
Well, Tesla has service centers.
Right, and we don't
all
know,
over.
and we don't know what Slate service sensors are going to be like right now. But
Well, we're
we
just
know,
2 years out.
but
yeah.
we know, just like if you own a Ferrari or
Well, there's
or a Pagani or
Oh,
a Ford
I would
GT.
love to own a
Hold on. You buy these cars, they don't have service networks. How do you service them?
Well, Pagani actually has a dealer network. and
no,
so does
you're
Ferrari.
hold on.
I've been to their stores and I
We
drool.
don't have a Ferrari store in every city in the country.
True. Then you
Your
have to
car has to.
flatbed it.
Yes, you got it. Your car's
So-
going to get flatbedded to wherever their service center
So
is built.
Initially, they say it's going to be the big cities. So it'll be New York, L.A., Boston, probably Miami, maybe Phoenix, probably somewhere in Seattle area, probably Portland area. So those are going to be your big areas. They're not going to sell in Butte, Montana. So people may have them there, but they're going to have
No,
to be flatbedded
I think-
at somebody's cost.
I think that they are going to put the service centers where they believe their market research shows that
Sure.
they're going to have the highest concentration
That
of
makes sense.
customers.
What's true with Tesla? We live in the Buffalo area. If your Tesla's down, it gets flatbedded to Cleveland. And my favorite part is flatbedded on an F-250 diesel because I see them all the time. I find that hysterical.
It is just like if they,
I don't know. It's like you see one on the side of the road and you're like, well, Ford Diesel's going to come and pick it up.
or you run out of battery power and a truck comes with a diesel generator and charges your vehicle back.
Or they flatbed it to someplace where there is a charger.
Yeah.
Again, the infrastructure is interesting. It's going to have a NACS charger. What is NACS? That's the same thing that Tesla uses. That's going to become the new standard. Every brand has jumped on. It had to be something. We went through this with onboard diagnostics back in the 80s. Everyone had the different system. And then 1996, they said, there's one system. Let's stop playing around. OBD2, that's a little thing. You plug it under the dash and it says, hey, you connect to a computer or you connect to a reader and it tells you what's wrong with your car. And it's certainly much more involved now. This is the same thing with charging. We used to have all these different chargers. Now there's going to be one charger, and it's the Tesla charger, which is the one you want. Not everybody's getting there. I just had a Rolls-Royce Spectre that didn't have it, so I had to use regular fast charging.
Most of them have adapters in the trunk these days.
Well, they didn't because it wasn't what wouldn't take it.
Weird.
So it's just what it is. But so with that thought in mind, it's going to use NAC. So you own a Tesla. You bought that Tesla because you want to be able to charge at a Tesla charging station. And by the way, he does not own a Tesla.
No, not me.
No, neither do I. And that's a whole nother conversation. I think is gone way off the road, and into the ditch, and then on the other side. But as far as the next charger, I think what's interesting about that is that now you own a Tesla. You bought the Tesla because of the charging station, and now you go to the Tesla charger to charge your new Slate. And there's a whole bunch of other brands that are charging at the same point. Now, where we're not that far out rural, but there's only 6 charging stations that are nearby.
Yep.
And there's 1 or 2 cars there on a regular basis, but you leave your car there and then they come back hours later or the next morning to pick it up, which I find absurd because there's other people that want to charge. But in a lot of cities, like I'm on my way to Houston, and I know when I get there, there'll be charging stations, but they're typically all full with a multitude of different cars because everybody can charge there now. So I think that infrastructure's far from there, much like that of hydrogen. It all sounds great on the surface. That's another brand that's out of business, Nikolai. That's still not the one.
Not Nikolai.
Nikolai, yeah. That was the full-size trucks that were hydrogen and electric.
Although Nikola's collapsing too. You can write that down.
That is the brand.
No, Nikola, the 18-wheeler trucks.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
A friend of mine worked there, and they're out of business. They're gone.
Yes, they're officially done.
It's sad because I thought it was a great solution to having the best of both worlds. Hydrogen, awesome. You're on the highway, electric to get the thing rolling. And it was good for ports and that kind of stuff. And then they, of course, take them to warehouses where they put them on regular diesel trucks, which I still love diesel. Hybrid diesel even more, but that's a whole other conversation. We've had that conversation.
Yes, we've had that conversation.
And I've talked to manufacturers about that too. And it's always off-the-record conversations, which I love.
So quick note on that. Anytime we have conversations with people, executives or people in product planning, designers, etc., and we say, hey, how about this great idea? People seem to want it. It seems to work. The tech is there. It maybe needs a little bit more R&D, or maybe it's prepared or it's already ready, but nobody's putting it in their vehicles. And now we just hear very recently that I believe it was Volkswagen.
Yes.
And they said, we will bring back real hard analog buttons to our car interfaces. But it's going to take.
We've been complaining about them.
But it's going to take 10 years.
Well,
why?
I think it'll come before. It has to do with refresh rates of the models.
It has to do with the production cycle because it takes so long.
Paul used to work for a brand.
When I was working at Nissan, I got to talk with the product planning team, and I knew what was coming way down the line, what they were allowed to tell me because I was working in marketing and I had to know some stuff, but not too much. And I asked them questions like, oh, I heard, an inkling about this vehicle, or I'm asking about that vehicle. And when are we going to see the new update? And the answer was, oh, well, it's going to take somewhere between 5 and 10 years because
they worked that far out.
We have to go through a concept, and then we have to go, get all the parts, and we have to do tests, and then we have to do prototypes, and we have to do bucks, and then we got to show a concept, and then we have to start pre-production. And sometimes cars can get really far through the process and get canceled before we ever see them.
They just did that with Nissan. Just with 2 electric vehicles they were going to build in the U.S. And because they see that the Aria and the Leaf are not selling at the levels they'd like, even though they have great value to offer if you're interested in an electric car, they're just not selling. So because of that, they're going to have to start looking at, we need to build performance cars again. We need to build better GTRs. We need to build SUVs that people want. We need to build things that don't have CVT transmissions that everybody hates.
But even then, it takes.
They're working on it. It's going to take them years to get this up and running, and they're in deep financial trouble.
And that's the whole point, is that it takes them so long to get through this design to buying the car.
New CEO. I want to see what they're going to do.
But it takes so long to get through that process that we might never see certain vehicles, or the car could change entirely by the time it gets to market. Like now, we know that
all the time.
Now we know that Porsche is going to make a hybrid version of the new Macan, which was supposed to be all EV.
Did I not call that?
But they made that announcement after, like, hey, the Macan EV is coming to market like in a couple of months. By the way, we're starting
Drove the EV. I
we're starting
reviewed.
design on a hybrid.
Yeah, but I drove the EV and I said I love the Macan. It's their number one selling product. Outsells the Cayenne,
Yep.
which I own one of, and so do you.
Yep.
Love it. However, the EV has a lot of limitations, and it's not Porsche. It's all the other factors that are involved. There's just so many: the insurance, the charging, the the life of the batteries, etc. Charging anxiety and whatever. So now they realize, oh, the mandate's not going to happen because the U.S. sort of sets the pace.
Yeah.
If that CRA, which is going to be voted on this week, happens, they got to take everyone to the floor, and everybody has to post their vote. So we will now know who's on board and who's not on board, whichever side you
I
like.
have a strong feeling it's going to be across party lines.
Oh, I'm sure. Then that means no more mandate, no more $7,500 tax credit.
Republicans have a slight edge in Congress right now.
Well, we'll see. We'll see who switches over. There are some Democrats that don't like it because the district that they represent, it doesn't work and it affects jobs. And if it affects jobs or they're up for re-election, they're going to find out what their voting base wants, and they're going to do exactly that. So I think you might see a few crossovers because even like the AM radio thing we've talked about and everything else, there's a lot of cross-party line stuff going on because you have to think about, I need to get reelected, and if I need to get reelected, I want to make sure that the people that are voting for me love what I say and don't attack me, because they will.
But we don't have, like, I don't know, EV plants in America.
Well, there's a couple battery plants in Nevada.
Yeah.
And then there is some recycling going on from redwood, but
it's not the same
not
as, like,
nearly. And of course, there's been also battery fires at recycling plants. That's always been exciting too. But there's all these environmental impacts and the fact that we could actually do all our own mining here, and there's a reason we don't.
Oh,
this is what no one's talking
horribly
about.
hazardous to the health of the people actually doing the work.
Cobalt.
Yeah.
Cadmium, mercury. Remember mercury in the little thermometers? Everyone used to put the thermometer on their tongue. Now they don't do that. Now you've got all the digital stuff or in your ear. The reason is that mercury. Remember Mad Hatters?
Yes.
They used to, the guys that would make cool hats. Well, they would use mercury, and they would be called Mad Hatters because they literally would go mad from the mercury. And so mercury, digging it out of the earth to use it, the miners that would be using it would be exposed to it.
Yep.
So you're going to make people literally go mad. I'm not sure what the repercussions would be actually from a medical standpoint, but when you start looking at all these rare earth minerals, and I know they call them rare earth, but there's minerals you have to be mined, they could be done here, but we don't do it here. And they don't do it in Canada either for the same reason.
They call them rare earth minerals, I think, as a marketing move.
Oh, yeah. It's like fossil fuels, same thing.
They're not rare.
Well, fossil fuels don't come from fossils.
I think if I remember correctly, it's
a good marketing tool.
It's not rare because they're hard to find or there's not a lot of them. They're rare because
nobody wants to mine them?
No. It has to do something with, like, the actual, like, chemical compound or something like that. But these words are used in a way to manipulate the opinions of the public in the same way that you say, oh, fossil fuels, and you're like, well, how many fossils could there possibly be? But they're not
all those
fuels.
Dead dinosaurs. It has nothing to do with that.
It's not dinosaurs that
right.
that were the
but
oil.
That's the story that the green push is using.
Yes. Yeah. So let's talk about
So Slate
is coming to market.
Well, let's see. It's not till 2026, so we got a long way to go. I know that I will get an opportunity to drive it. I'm very excited. I was supposed to be there for the event.
It should be up for World Car and North American Car of the Year, right?
No, because it won't be a global car. It will be a U.S. built car for the U.S. market.
Only, so you'll drive
initially, I'm sure. So we'll drive it as a NOCTOY or North American Car and Truck of the Year.
Or I guess it would be Truck of the Year, specifically. I assume.
No,
It's pickup.
Yeah, it starts as a pickup truck. I think we're far from that. I think you'll be looking at so we're already driving 26s. I just started driving some 26s.
Till 26, so
I think it'll be a 27 or a 28.
Yeah.
The big thing's going to be, and this is why I said this. I said, I got a great idea. You guys are going to love this. We're going to create a car company. It's going to be all electric. It's going to be budget friendly. We're going to raise a ton of money, millions and millions of dollars. I'm going to hire designers, marketing, tech people. We're going to do a whole presentation. But in reality, we're never actually going to build the car. We're going to build it for show.
It would be.
And I'm going to pay you $1 million a year and pay me $1 million a year. And everybody on the team gets paid huge money. And it disappears. And if you go, why the hell would you do that? Because a lot of people have done that. And there's a lot of failed companies, starting with Fisker and a bunch of others that have happened.
Well,
and they did the exact same thing I'm talking about.
Well, hold on.
I'm thinking you and I need to start a car company.
One thing, though, some of those companies really did try to make a car. But some of those that we never saw a real vehicle.
Oh, like the one that was out of Nevada. I can't remember the name of it.
Like the chances of
it was all like that skateboard design. And another one. It was all funded by the Chinese, and it was millions and millions and millions of dollars. And they built the plant and everything. Never built a car.
But the chances that if you never bring a car to market and nobody ever sees it, I mean, there's a possibility that someone was manipulating the system because there's so much money flying around.
Think?
There's so much money flying around. Government
billions of dollars
from the government and outside investors
Right.
and whoever else that
Right.
it's entirely possible that they were just and look, we could do that and get away with it, and as long as you have really, really good lawyers and accountants, you could actually get away with it.
Well, if you've seen the movie The Producers,
Yeah.
okay. So if you haven't seen it, it's a Mel Brooks movie, highly worth watching. It is a classic. But they made that move. They made a production with the full thoughts of making it so bad that it would fail. But it didn't fail. It succeeded because they turned into a comedy.
Yeah, can you imagine we make an EV, we do everything in our power to make sure that it fails, and then all of a sudden people are like, oh yeah, like
We want to buy it.
we want to buy it. Oh gosh, we got to make them. Okay, so we have a big list in front of us here.
Yeah, and there's more because now I can't not remember the name, and you guys can put down names of cars that have failed of this electric car company out of Nevada, and I remember them showing it, and they hired a friend of mine who works at Jaguar. He was the lead product planner. They paid him huge money. He says, I know this isn't going to make it. He goes, but I'm going to take the job because the pay was so good. So he took the job. Now he's back at Jaguar Land Rover. I hope he's on the Land Rover side because the Discovery is great, and the Defender is awesome. I'm not so fan about the Jaguar, but that's a whole other conversation.
We've talked about that here.
Yeah, and we did. And I actually ran into someone from Jaguar at the New York Auto Show, and he said to me,
They say
his favorite line was, are you coming with me on the journey?
Sure, I'll see you there.
I'm like, what journey? The journey of losing your mind. So they claim the product's going to be fantastic. Again, all electric.
Totally different market.
No,
Price is ridiculous.
It's not a Rolls. Rolls sells the Spectre. It's freaking cool. However, if you own a Rolls, you probably have 20 other vehicles, and this is just to get you to the country club and back, or to go to and show off to your friends. People that own those cars own them because they have other cars.
Yeah.
It's a $486,000 car, and yeah, I reviewed it. It's on my channel, Car Smarts. All the reviews live on Car Smarts. All the news and the podcasts live on Car Coach Reports, because a lot of people have asked, where are your car reviews? They live on Car Smarts. You can find them on YouTube.
Link is down below.
Right. It's also on the website, which is Car Coach Reports. You can click to that or Car Smarts, either one. All right, so the list.
So we have a list here because
I think the biggest offender, Fisker, number one. Biggest offender.
Let's talk about why we have the list in the first place.
Because everybody makes these promises. Like I said, we could create a car company. I got this great idea. We'll raise millions and millions of dollars. We'll build this really great car, and we're going to fail intentionally. Now, I don't think this is a fail intentionally, because that's an accusation that I am not making.
But it is possible because Bezos is a smart guy and he's got a lot of money, and this could be a write-off. But
Maybe.
There's been a lot of companies that have come out swinging with product that's been pretty good, but they've each had some kind
And I've
of
reviewed a
issue
lot of it.
or another. Like Rivian's had their fair share of issues. They're still around.
They're not going anywhere right now. They just got a huge $3 billion investment. Bollinger's gone. I believe they're gone or close to gone.
They were a all-electric Land Rover
like
Defender
cruiser,
style.
yeah.
No, Defender style.
Defender, yeah.
I remember seeing that at the auto show, and I thought that was super cool. I'm like, oh, it's electric.
They're originally from Binghamton, New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, they came with this great idea. Then someone said, we got to move the whole factory to Detroit. So they did. And they got investors. And much like that of many other companies, you get all these board members who think they know better, paid big money, and they destroy the company.
Or they either make a move that destroys them, or they make a bad product, or they never get their product to market, or they invest so much money in getting the product to market, it collapses under its own weight.
Yep, that's true.
So we have some non-EVs on here. Let's start with those.
Well, we have to start with Fisker because Fisker started with the Karma
Super cool.
And I drove it. A friend of mine was a PR guy. He said,
I
"Hey, you
still have
gotta
the
come on."
concept sketch on my wall in my
It's
office.
probably worth something.
Yeah,
And it
maybe.
had a solar roof to help keep the charge going, which works if you live in California or warm weather.
Mm.
And it had a backup engine, which I
Yeah,
liked.
it was a hybrid.
And I thought it was pretty cool. It was a cool looking car.
Mm.
It handled pretty well. They had tough time without a dealer network,
Mhm.
but it almost had a DeLorean kind of
And
feel
and
to it.
it
You know what
had
I
a
mean?
lot of
Like it was really different,
mm,
but like it did make it. DeLorean's another one that
they
didn't
had a
make it.
lot of battery
There's
problems.
another one we forgot to add to our list. DeLorean.
Well, no, DeLorean's still humming
Someone
along.
bought everything. They
Well,
went out of business.
hold on.
Someone bought all the.
There are 3 DeLorean companies.
Oh, that's new.
Oh, you didn't hear about this? This is
No.
great. All right. There's 3 DeLorean companies. One of them is restoring old DeLoreans. One of them is building new DeLoreans with the old stock, and the third one is an all-electric, all-new DeLorean company.
Oh, that could be interesting. Are any of them surviving?
Uh,
Maybe the restoration guy.
no, the electric one is still on track to build a car eventually. I don't
Eventually.
think they're going to make it.
About the same time as Slate. So
But here's the problem is that I believe all 3 of them are some variety of DeLorean motor company, and you have to I don't know how to differentiate
nothing
them.
like making it complicated for the consumer.
But I think the only one that's actually
Well, some guy
I-
bought all the old parts because they were sitting in a warehouse.
I think it's the restoration one that's actually
He's been around
doing
for a while. I think
okay.
he's in Texas, right?
I think so. And then the one that bought all the old parts to make the new cars, I don't know what's going on there, honestly.
That's
But I know that there's
big.
3 companies.
Building a car company, and you know what? Here's another one. This is a big one. We talked about this.
Oh
Well,
gosh.
Before we get to that,
Okay, sorry, I saw what she wrote.
Fisker failed, went out of business. A company called Karma bought them all. There's a few out
You
there. I think
couldn't-
there's a couple dealers around the
Couldn't
country.
call it Fisker because Henry Fisker owned
Heinrich.
Heinrich Fisker owned his own brand, and
Right.
and that was his.
So he couldn't use it.
So they used the name of the car, called it the Karma Rivero.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. But it's a cool car. It's the same thing essentially, but it's all electric.
Honestly, I've always liked that car, but now
I liked it. It has its issues.
but now all Karmas are all electric,
Yeah.
and I don't know how well they're
Karma
doing
with
right
a
now.
K.
Yes,
I spell karma with a C.
Yeah.
Car-ma.
Karma is spelled with a K.
I know, but when you're talking about cars, it's karma. All right. Fisker then said, my wife and I are going to create another car company to be all electric. They were at the World Car of the Year Awards.
Mm.
I drove the
They
car.
had 2 cars, right?
The only one they brought is one. It was an SUV. It was a
Ocean.
5-person. It was an Ocean. They did have 2. I forgot the other one. A friend of mine worked on their marketing team again. They pay big money in order to take people from legitimate car
Yeah,
companies.
they essentially headhunt so they get the best talent they can. But
right.
again,
But
they're
they pay
collapsing
them, but it's all short term, and
they're
you got to know that
collapsing
when you take that job.
under their own weight.
Right. So he brought the car to market. It had some really cool features. It had like a table that would come around and just little teeny things that go, oh, that's a great idea, or that's a great idea, or the interface. Everything, the interface would turn. So if you were parked, you could turn the interface sideways. It would be like a laptop or an iPad, and you could watch movies or whatever. I mean, it really had some really creative ideas. However, people were taking orders and putting down deposits and taking deliveries. And then somehow the wife, who was in charge of accounting, couldn't account for where the payments were from the monthly payments from those that purchased cars. Couldn't account for a lot of things. I'm shocked that there's not some sort of legal angle on this. That
There probably is that we haven't heard about.
Well, it's definitely financial issue where they couldn't account for a lot of the money and the company ended up going out of business. So anyone that had one, their center screen no longer worked because it was connected to the internet, which was connected to the home server, and that's a problem. So now they got all these cars sitting around. They couldn't sell them that they built. It was like 6,000 or 7,000. It was a lot of cars. And now they're in trouble. Company's out of business. What do we do with them? And people that wanted to buy them, because you could get them super discounted. I mean, instead of paying 30,000, you would have paid like 12,000. And it did not win a World Car of the Year award,
Nope.
thank God, because that would have been embarrassing. And I'm
Yeah,
on the World Car jury.
that would have been devastating.
Yeah.
Well, also you as a juror,
It wasn't quality.
as a journalist,
the
as a
others.
juror, you don't know what the financial health of a company is.
No,
All
you
you
can only
can do is
guess.
judge it on the actual. Okay, let's think back to Tesla. Now, my friend just drove up to visit me yesterday,
Mhm.
and he has a Model Y,
Yeah.
the egg.
That's the most probably the biggest popular one.
Yes, it's the
And it's
highest.
been refaced and all that
It's the
stuff.
highest selling.
Yeah.
His
More
is
than a 3.
his is a
Refresh.
refresh.
Some of them look pretty cool. The
But
newer ones do look better.
but I took a look at his car because what's the first thing that you and I do
Build
when we're-
quality.
Yeah.
God forbid. How bad was
The
it?
first thing we do when we're looking at Teslas or even classic cars is
Right.
looking at panel gaps and build quality.
And paint quality.
And his car was actually in really good condition.
Well, a lot
and
of
I looked
paint
around.
gets retouched before it goes to delivery.
But I looked around, and the car actually didn't have any issues. And I'm starting to think back
Well,
to.
they're building them better. It only took them 20 years.
Yeah, but but I think that's the whole thing, is that it took them time to say, well, our processes aren't perfect. We're trying to slap cars together and get them on the
That's
road.
the key word. Slap cars together.
like they're building cars in the 50s. Like, okay, so anybody who knows classic cars, if you've ever restored a car, or if you go to a car show and you really like to inspect these vehicles, you're like, why did they do that? And how did that get there? And, why is this thing very inconveniently placed in comparison to this other item? And it's because they were just trying to get cars together and out the door.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have volume like Tesla did, they didn't have the opportunity to slow down the rate that they were selling cars. They had to keep production at
They
pace.
could
and
do
they
that
were
with
like,
the
you know what?
Cybertruck, though.
Slap them together, get them out the door.
They could do that with the Cybertruck because they ain't selling.
Yeah.
And they tried the stripped down version, but they took all the goodies off.
Oh yeah, the long range. So I was just on a national network talking about the new Tesla Cybertruck long range, which is a stripped down version. You lose a lot of the fun features. If you want to get that story, go and check out. It's on Car Coach Reports, and you can go watch that interview.
Yeah.
But there's so many companies that have just attempted and failed. It's not always build quality and sales. I feel like most of the time the company is just poorly run because some guy's got a brilliant idea. I'm gonna change the world. It's gonna be the coolest
Everybody
car
says that.
ever. And then it comes to market. It's got 100,000 problems. They can't keep up with service, and then it's done. So here you have Fisker,
Mm-hmm.
and it collapsed the first time, and the Karma picked it back up, and they're still in business. And I don't know, but they're still in business. I don't know
what
how well
happened to
they're
the rest of the Fiskars?
And then
They
what?
sat in a lot, and they made a deal with the New York State Taxi Authority. And I was
I don't
just
think
in
that
Manhattan.
never went through, did it?
It did.
It did?
So I'm at the New York Auto Show, and sitting at a traffic light is a Fisker with a taxi medallion on it.
Whoa.
So they're using them as taxi cabs, and they must have given them to their higher Uber drivers or higher taxi drivers to get. They
Yeah,
must have got a deal on them. They
well,
must have had a
it costs-
deal like nobody's ever had a
I mean,
deal.
it costs a lot of money to get a medallion, and I
Well, if you have a medallion, just move it from one vehicle to another.
don't know how that works.
Medallions have gone down in value.
Yeah.
That was a Bloomberg thing. He bought all the medallions and then limited the market that was available. Then he dumped them all.
Yeah.
So, but let's look at
Okay,
another.
so Fisker collapsed twice.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest failure. And unfortunately, I think in my book, he's done. Stop trying to make cars. Once you've had 2 failures, you don't want to go.
And my whole
3.
thing is that it's a shame because
He had an amazing history in design.
yeah, that's the thing is you have a great design. You
But
have
he's got history there.
you
He
have
had
passion and
successful-
technology. You have a car that people like.
Mhm.
But when all the things can't come together, I want more selection in the market.
Absolutely.
Don't make us buy EVs, but give us,
choices.
there's a big list here in front of us.
If-
There's a
yeah,
lot
if
of
you
car
saw the
companies
list,
that are
you'd-
gone. And some of them are just rebodies of other cars.
Right. And they're
Like Mercury's dead. Is that on the list?
yeah, Mercury's on the list, and so is Pontiac and Oldsmobile. And the reason they're both there because they basically would take a Buick and rebody it, or a Chevy and rebody it, or Ford would take a Mercury and add a few luxury things on it. It was sort of like between a Lincoln and a Ford. I mean, they made some great products. The Cougar was awesome.
Yeah, and that was built on
and
the Mustang.
Marquis and
And later on the Capri was built on.
I've had a lot of crappies, as I used to
Yeah,
call them.
but there's
Capris.
there's
they're-
different
I had
levels
names for 'em.
of performance and luxury
Right.
that allows people choice.
Right.
If you were going to buy a Saturn,
Right.
that was the cheap car from the
Right.
GM lineup,
Mhm.
and that made sense.
Well, Toyota did that too with Scion.
So Toyota, yeah,
And that Jim Farley, who's currently the president of Ford Motor Company, that's his claim to fame. I don't know if I would say that's your claim
I'm
to
sorry,
fame.
I would never admit
I
to
wouldn't
working at
acknowledge
Scion.
that. That was like the kid car. Toyota makes great product, reliable product, high resale, just like Honda does. Same thing. But they cheaped out a car. And yeah, I have a friend who still has an XA. She uses it to go to the train station.
I've seen TCs around.
Yeah, they're around. I mean, I don't think
Oh,
they're
a couple
ever.
XPs. There's a couple XPs in town.
My girlfriend had an XP. She ran it into the ground with like 200,000 miles on it. But it was a Ford. It was a Toyota Driveline. But still, just the car itself was like quirky and weird.
It was too simple.
It was
And the
odd.
design was
We
supposed
had a
to be.
friend that had a TC also. I mean,
So,
they're all right.
the
I
whole-
mean, they're. I hate to even call them starter cars. They were.
No, they were, but that's
for
not
Toyota,
what they stood
they
for.
make great product. Just sell the product you sell great, and they do that.
So
they sell trucks, they sell SUVs, they sell cars.
So they said, we need to target the young market, first-time drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Let's market directly towards them. Go back and look at the old
That was a
Scion
Harley
marketing.
project, yeah.
And all of the marketing is like pop music, and
Yeah.
it's fun and goofy, bright colors, and there's young people looking like they're having a lot of fun in these cool-looking cars.
Everybody,
And
Chevy's tried that
I
too
liked
with the
the
tracks.
design.
Yeah.
I did like the design. And I always wanted a TC.
But
And
not an XA.
And I didn't care that they were low on power because people were modifying the crap out of them, just like they did with eventually the 5,000 different variations of the GR86.
Yeah.
Which actually started with Scion.
Which they still sell.
Which was, what was the
the
Scion?
GR86 is a fun little car.
Was it the Scion? The Scion was the first version of the what eventually become the 86. I think it was just the 86.
The TC was, yeah.
No, not the TC. The TC was like a notchy kind of coupé style.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a
It's like an 86,
like an Audi
though.
TT.
Yeah.
No, the 86 was a different model, and they had, I think, was it just like the Scion GT? It doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm not gonna try to remember the name
We
of this
could go
car
down.
from
We've been doing
15
this a long
years ago. But the point is that they did all this marketing,
Mhm.
and what ended up happening was elderly people that needed a simple, cheap car to get around
would do
town.
that.
They said, "Ooh, that car looks cute and fun, and it's cheap. I'll buy that." And the market collapsed in on themselves because they were like, "Oh gosh, we totally misjudged how to design these cars."
Yep.
And in the market that should have been buying it, that had volume to buy it,
Mhm.
market volume, there it wasn't there. So they had a really small volume. They missed their target market, and the whole thing collapsed.
So XB, the only thing that's close to that today, is a Kia Soul. And they sell the heck out of those. So I find that
Oh
interesting.
gosh, remember the Nissan Cube?
Yeah, that was a really weird looking
I'm
car.
just thinking about the boxy cars.
Oh gosh. All right, so other brands that have disappeared, Saab.
Oh, that was so sad.
Saab was an interesting brand. The guy that started another car company outside of business. Oh man.
Spiker.
Spiker.
Love
What
Spiker.
a cool car. Would known one. I have a friend that has one.
Shout out to Spiker enthusiast who's doing everything in his power to keep these vehicles alive.
Wicked cool cars. A friend of mine who runs a channel called VinWiki at Bullion has one, and he showed me how wacky it was. Like, you can't lock it. You have to open the door. You have to reach your arms as long as you can to touch the top of the button on top of the side view mirror to open the door. I'm like, stop.
I don't care. I like it.
It is very cool. It's very steampunk.
The open
very turn of
linkage,
the century.
the turning on all the metal surfaces.
The guy's name who owned it was a guy named Victor Mueller. I don't know why that name popped in my head. That's really whack that I remembered that. So when Saab was doing terribly, they're a Swedish car company, Victor Mueller bought them. And I actually rode in a car with him, which was the oddest situation. I get in the Saab, and he gets in, and he says, we're going to get a coffee. I'll buy. I'm like, okay. You're like, I didn't even know this guy. So we ended up having a whole conversation because the other person in the car was not interested in getting a cup of coffee. Listen, dude, you get out of the car and you have an opportunity with an executive. You let him talk.
Yes.
He bought me a cup of coffee, but we ended up talking, and I learned all about his history and all about why he bought Saab. Because as a kid, he had seen a Saab, and that's what sort of inspired him to build the Spiker. He sold Spiker.
Hold on, which makes a lot of sense because Saab originally made planes, and Spiker originally made planes.
So very interesting that he tried to save the company, and it didn't survive. I think the parts and a lot of it are still available in Sweden.
They are.
But GM bought them and destroyed them. And then when GM dumped them, like they did all the brands like Pontiac, Oldsmobile, and Hummer, which they brought back Hummer.
A Chinese company then bought the
Don't know
old
what's
GM factory. There was a lot that happened.
But,
it was
but
very
bottom
quick.
line is Saab still made cool cars until General Motors bought them. And Spiker, I still like. I don't know if he went back to buying a piece of Spiker.
Spiker's dead.
It's dead. What a
No,
shame.
the only way to get a Spiker right now is to find one used. And right now, Spiker Enthusiast, who's based out of Europe, somewhere in Europe, I think it's Poland.
Yeah.
I'll have to double check.
Well, they can make anything in Poland.
And
They restore cars, and so they do a lot of cool stuff.
So he is specialized only in restoring old Spikers.
Really?
And he's like bringing a lot of these cars back to life, including like pre-production, or not even pre-production, like one-off cars, things like that.
You
Really
can build anything you want in Poland. It just takes money. So here's a project that disappeared.
Yeah.
It was called the Titan Project. And they had a whole bunch of executives. It was super secret. It was known as, to you and I, the Apple car.
Yes.
Now, as an Apple person, I don't have an Apple Watch anymore, but I have an Apple phone, Apple devices. I thought it was an interesting thought because everybody knows Apple CarPlay, but I think Apple misjudged what it takes to build a car versus a computer versus an iPad versus a phone. And yes, they can mass produce. Yes, they can build in India and here in China, whatever. You could order it on the Apple app. I think they didn't realize the problem. They have, like, you have to think about interiors and the other details that Apple never does. And it would be cool. You could make them white. You could make them in fun colors because Apple's always been like that. But it would be the same thing as Android making a car. It doesn't make sense. Using the interface is more profitable, and building cars is, in general, not a profitable effort.
They did partner with Waymo.
They did, but now I just heard the other day, I don't even know if I told you, Volkswagen in their ID Buzz, the bus that I've reviewed, which I actually liked. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm not an electric car person, but I really liked the Buzz. I thought it was a really cool vehicle, and it won a World Car of the Year award because it deserved it. They're partnering with Waymo because they can't sell them here in the US. And the reason they can't sell them is not because they're not cool, because they're very cool. It's because they're too expensive. So the starting price is $68,000. That puts most people outside the price point. But, and they're also telling dealers to make them all two-tone. Find someone to put decals over whatever solid colors they had ordered, because they had, a lot of times the dealers are forced to order certain color combinations from corporate. They're saying, hey, we're going to send you 6 of these ID Buzzes, and they're going to come this, and this color, and this loaded. And they may go, oh, well, we kind of wanted the two-tone. They're making them all two-tone because that's what people want. But the original bus.
They've done the market research. They know what people want.
Right. But they're a little late to market. If they were smart, offer stripped-down ID Buzzes. In other words, you get it like a Slate. Here's your dash. The back is open. You find an upfitter. You do it yourself. You make it a camper. You can make
like
it whatever.
A Sprinter.
Right. You do whatever you want, but they didn't. Instead, they only offer fully loaded versions starting at $68,000. Loaded comes in almost $80,000. At $80,000, that's a lot. You can buy a house at that point. You buy a condo. So people kind of
not anymore
steered away from that. Well, it depends where you live.
Yeah.
So they're partnering with Waymo so people can start getting used to the vehicle, which is smart.
Yeah.
But if Volkswagen, and I know Volkswagen's got a huge investment. We had a long conversation with a friend of mine who's no longer there. He was the product planner. I think the reason was because these didn't sell like they thought. They took way too long to get to market. If they offered a range extender on that, they'd sell them all day long. They need to start thinking about the original Volkswagen bus was value-based. They had all kinds of cool stuff. You could make them campers. People bought them. Some people lived in them. But they were reasonably priced for the average consumer. At $68,000, that is not reasonably priced. $50,000 is the average price of a gas-powered car. $66,000 for an electric-powered car. You need to come in low. You need to come in like $40,000. You'll sell them all day long. Take out all the extra crap. Let people build what they want. Then they will sell them.
Well, some companies tried to do things like that, and it didn't.
But you got to buy the expensive one and rip out the good stuff. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
So let's jump back to the Apple Titan.
The Apple Titan, same kind of problem. It would have been too expensive.
We never saw anything beyond a concept.
Well, we don't know if that was a concept. It was supposedly some leaked diagram, but we've all seen stuff like that.
So
stuff too.
But knowing Apple, because
they're not going to do it halfway.
Research, they don't do anything halfway, and they take a long time to get anything to market, which is why it
took too long.
The difference between an iPhone 12 and an iPhone 16 is not that huge. If you like from a broad technological perspective, there's a lot of great features, and the camera's better, and construction's different,
better memory,
whatever. The actual like core differences and like functionality is not huge. It's like I'm sure there's plenty of people with old phones right now with absolutely no problems. You know,
the problem is
it's not like with cars.
If you don't update it, you're screwed. Your apps don't work, and then people get frustrated.
Definitely with some of those. But cars, they're adding so much stuff each year, and the expectations are
Mhm.
higher and higher and higher. And there's starting to be a disconnect between consumers and the manufacturers about what to actually put in these cars. And I'm thinking that Apple, if they haven't shelved Titan, which we probably don't officially know what's going on
Oh,
behind
no,
the
it has
scenes.
been. It's done.
Officially,
It's
officially.
done.
Okay.
Everybody's fired. The whole project is done. By the way, I want to
They've
remind you.
renamed it. They moved all the money.
Want to remind you, please comment down below. We'd love to hear comments of other car companies that have gone out of business that you just throw your hands in the air and go, what a stupid idea, because there's so many of them. And also like and subscribe, share this video with your friends because we love the conversation and we appreciate your support. And we'll continue down our list. The postal trucks. Boy, that was a hot video on our channel.
Is that officially dead now? They finished. They
Well, not
finished
yet.
the process.
They're trying to bring the money back by a law called Return to
Oh,
Sender.
yes, Return to Sender.
Don't
yeah.
ask me to sing. You can sing.
Nope. But we did.
He can sing. I cannot.
We did just do a video on that as well on the channel, so you can go and check that out.
On postal trucks. It's amazing. $3 billion.
Oshkosh Defense,
Which makes defense vehicles. They don't make electric cars, and they don't know what they're doing, and they've admitted it.
They do build other road vehicles,
but not electric.
Vehicles, not electric.
So this was asking them to build orange out of an apple, essentially. So it wasn't possible.
And they're ugly. Sorry.
They're really ugly. Do you remember the movie Roger Rabbit?
Yeah.
It reminds me of a vehicle that should be in Roger Rabbit.
Oh,
big piece of glass, which would have cost thousands and thousands of dollars to replace. And this really weird low front end that looked like it was a cartoon character. Yeah. It was super weird looking, and they only delivered like 9 of them.
It's
and they were all like, yeah. So people that I know that are in the industry have
and there's no infrastructure to charge them.
Right. A lot of these, like if you're talking about like, I know East Jesus, Nebraska, and they're like, well, we got three vehicles that deliver mail, or people use their own vehicles. We don't have an infrastructure for charging, so it may not work here. But then in a big city like New York, they may not be able to charge because of other charging issues. So there won't be all kinds of issues.
Or they won't be able to deliver all of their vehicles.
You can't deliver all your mail today. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, we ran out of charge.
Yeah, but the thing is, there
are
still postal people that deliver on foot. I've seen it, and then it was the way in New York City when I lived there. They would pull a truck up on a corner, and the guy would have a little cart, and he'd just stop at all the different mailboxes because each building would have a bunch, and they'd pull down the whole mailbox and put them in. And you see that a lot in big apartment buildings, but overall, it was interesting because they made the agreement with Oshkosh Defense without even seeing if they had the capability of making it. And then internal people were saying, we don't have the ability to make this. I don't know what the hell we're doing. They have no clue what the hell they're doing. Yep. But the CEO's like, oh, we're working on it. Sure, you have to say that or you're getting fired by your board.
Yep.
So I get that. However, it was a massive failure, and I forgot who was behind it. You have to watch the video on our channel, Car Coach Reports. But that's called Return to Sender, which I just had to laugh because it's just so perfect.
I left your laughs in there intentionally. I thought it was really.
I got a lot of good comments.
It was fun. I was laughing along with you in the editing bay.
Yeah, it was funny. It was really funny.
All right, what other vehicles do we have left on the list here?
Okay, AMC.
Oh, AMC, that's an old one.
That was I'm trying to think of his name. His father ran it.
Was AMC owned by a bigger company?
It was American Motors Corporation. They had the Pacer and the Gremlin and the AMX, some cool cars. And some
the Javelin.
The Javelin was raced in Trans Am.
Super cool.
But there were some cool cars, but they didn't make it. And part of it was that their cars would rust and rot. And those that collect those, I understand they're cool cars. People collect the Gremlin. Hey, lady, where's the back half of your car? I'm dating myself by remembering that commercial. The Pacer, which looked like a fishbowl, which was also in one of the Saturday Night Live, turned into a movie skits. I can't think of the name of it. You can write that down.
I don't remember.
But all of that was interesting. Unfortunately, failed. They had partnered with Jeep. Jeep has been an interesting brand. It was originally AM General. It failed, made Jeeps for the military. That did well. Then it got absorbed by AMC. Then it got dumped by AMC because they went out of business. Then they went to Chrysler, which has changed hands and failed so many times.
And now Stellantis is failing too.
Right. Well, Lee Iacocca took over, and he went to the federal government under the Jimmy Carter administration and said, hey, I need money or we're going to have a lot of people out of jobs. So they bailed him out. And he came with the K car and the minivan.
No, he didn't do the K car. That came from Japan.
But he was behind. No, the K car is absolutely a Chrysler product. That's before your time. My grandmother had one.
K car, Kei?
No, just the letter K.
Oh, I thought you were talking about K.
No, but he created the minivan
like
too.
the cappuccino is a K car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the reason for that is Lee Iacocca had been working for Ford, and he developed the Mustang. And he said, your last name will never be Ford, so you'll never go any further up the pike.
Yep.
So they fired him. And so he was peeved. So he went to their main competitor who was hurting financially, which was Stellantis. Well, it was Chrysler at the time. And he said, I don't know if I want to get on a sinking ship. And they said, we'll give you carte blanche to do whatever. And that's when he went to the government to get the money. Lee Iacocca was a genius. If you haven't read his book, highly worth reading.
Designer of the Mustang, the designer of the minivan.
Yep. So he really, really smart guy. And the K car, we all have to look that up.
The K car.
It's a really
I'm sure once I see it, I'll be like, oh my gosh, yeah. Why?
Grandmother had one and the radiator failed, but it was a great fuel efficient car. And they made the Omni and all that other stuff. So anyways,
Oh yeah.
Lee Iacocca left. The new owners killed the company, and they went back for more money. And then Fiat Chrysler got them with our tax dollars given to the Italians, who then said, we're not making good money here after we brought the Fiat, the Alfa Romeo, and the Maserati here. Love those cars. Not doing well. Love the cars, though. Sold to Stellantis, which is Peugeot. So now it's a French car company with your tax dollars.
It was Chrysler to
FCA.
To FCA to PSA to Stellantis.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So Stellantis is a weird name.
And who knows what's going to... Yeah, it sounds like a drug company.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And we've also...
Stellantis here.
Make sure that there's no...
Ask your doctor.
Yes. And if you've got any of these side effects, don't take it.
Right.
So they're working on some new stuff. Thankfully, I think Stellantis has a chance to survive, bringing back Tim Kuniskis for performance, making sure that Ralph Giles stays. Great designer, really good guy too. I think it has a chance. They got to stay away from the electric vehicles that people aren't buying because it'll kill them. They're bringing Ram production from Mexico back to the U.S., so you might see a resurgence under the Stellantis brand.
With all this being said,
a lot of stuff going on. This is probably the only time in my lifetime that I've seen so much car news. Typically, when I do these Car Coach reports, I'm struggling to find content. Now I've got so much content. I've got like 50 stories going in a week, and I'm like, we can't do all these. We have to decide between Paul and I which ones are worth for you to listen to, because if you heard everything, I'd be doing 24/7 like CNN reporting. I do use CNN as an example, but you know what I mean. 24-hour news of car content. There's that much.
Yeah, there is. So all that being said, do we think that this is a chance for Slate to step up and be the new Tesla, shock the market? People get excited.
Tesla's going to fight this.
Well, of course they are, but they're going to come in with no dealer network, just like Tesla. They're going to come in with
the mall or online.
They're going to come in with essentially what's concierge repair service.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it.
It kind of is.
If we can't fix it through an update through download, then we'll pick it up and fix it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then, you got the price point.
The price
point, customization.
Without the $7,500 tax credit, that's out the window, and we'll be reporting on that. So make sure to stick with our channel, subscribe, because I'm telling you, this is my prediction. Let me read my crystal ball. I'm really good at reading crystal balls. It's going to fail, and there will be no longer a mandate. There will be no longer the tax credit. And then they're going after the California Air Resources Board to take away all their power. Lee Zeldin's on it. President Trump's on it. And so Lutnick and a whole bunch of others, Scott Bessent, they're going after them. And when they lose their power, every single state will be able to call the rules for their state, and manufacturers can then build what you want rather than what they're forced to build. That's the bottom line here. That's what we all want. We don't want to be told you have to buy a truck, a car, an SUV, whatever propulsion. Pick what you want. Pick what works for you. That's really the bottom line.
Yeah, well said.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
So we'll see what happens with Slate. Maybe.
What do you think? What's your opinion on Slate? Will they survive or will they fail?
Do you want one too? I know we've talked around a lot of
personally
surrounding topics here. No, not you, them.
Yeah, do you want one? Write that down in the comments below.
Yeah, we want to know what you think.
And how would you build it?
Oh yeah, how would you spec it out? Yeah, go watch
the
video.
What would you name it?
I think, is there a builder online? I haven't checked.
Yeah, the builder's up, but they're far. You can place a deposit for $50. You just go to slate.auto.
And maybe you'll see
check
your
it out.
truck in 10 years. So
Well, I think
I
I
joke.
think there's going to be a lot of reservations at $50,
Yeah.
and that will raise a lot of
Well,
money.
just like the Cybertruck, but it took an extra 2 years before anybody saw a Cybertruck.
That's hideous. Look, it looks like a trash can. I'm
Well,
sorry.
I'm
I have friends that have them. I just
personal opinion,
can't.
the Slate isn't a very good-looking vehicle either.
Well, it reminds me of, remember the old Chevy S10. I'm really dating myself. When the
No.
S10 first came out, it was a
think it's that
mid-sized
ugly.
pickup truck. Well, no, it was just a little truck. It just was square and it did the job. It was a truck.
That's the
It
point.
got you from A to B. It was a two-seater. People wanted them, just like when the Ranger first came out way back. I'm not talking about now. The new Ranger's a whole new animal, especially like the Ranger Raptor and all that. We're talking about like base cars. But what it's going to do, it's going to cause Tesla to say, I've got a budget-friendly car. We know that for a fact. It's called a Model 2. Um, we know that they put it on hold, and maybe because of what's going on financially and his involvement in Doge and all that. But he
We'll
says
see.
he's coming back. Stock's up like $50 a share. So if you bought stock when it was like 200, you made a lot of money this week. And I'm not giving financial advice because I'm not a financial planner.
This is not financial advice.
This is not a
Please contact your official financial planner.
yeah. Thank you. Just like I'm not a doctor, I don't plan to be one.
You don't have the patience.
Don't forget to tip the waitresses. I'll be here all
Try
week.
the veal.
Try the veal, right? I hope you're laughing at home. You should be.
So,
Very vaudeville.
so we
Thank
want,
you.
so we want to know what you think down below.
Yeah.
Tell us your thoughts on Slate. We've talked a lot about
Survive or fail.
we've talked a lot about all of the other companies and the surrounding factors, and because I think that we really want to get a handle on what's happening with this company, and we're
New
not
car
going
companies.
to know. We are just going to sit back and watch, just like you are. We don't have any special knowledge outside of whatever's in the news.
I'd like to see him succeed. I think it would be cool.
I think it would be a lot of fun to have something funky and new on the road with
And made in the
more
US.
choice for people. And they didn't say the range.
No, there's a lot of information they
I
didn't
think it's going to
say.
be very short range.
I have a whole list of
I
specs that were sent to me, and all of them are on the it's slate.auto if you want to take a look.
I expect it's going to be short range, like hot around town kind of
Probably under 200 miles.
simple utility truck.
But I think it's an interesting idea. I like U.S. car companies coming on board. I like to see success, whether it's Bezos or whomever, whether it's you.
Because it's also success for all the people working for
It's
Slate.
jobs.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see U.S. car companies building stuff because Stellantis is not a U.S. car company anymore. The only U.S. car companies are Ford, General Motors, and Tesla, and now Slate. So they're not on board yet. They're coming around. There's a lot of stuff coming. There's a lot of product that's coming and going. I just like to see what they're doing. I was just in Milan at the design show. You can check that out on the Car Coach Reports channel. Actually, it was on Car Smarts. Car Smarts.
Because it was technically a first look at a new
Kia.
Kia.
Well, but they were the only like normal brand that was there. Otherwise, it was like
Hyundai.
BMW and no, it was Kia.
It was Kia, sorry.
But Hyundai wasn't there. So the only ones that were there were like the super premium lines, the Land Rovers, the BMWs, all that Aston Martins, but Bentleys, Bugattis. So when the Kia showed up there, this is their third year, they came on strong showing, hey, let's show you what we can do. And again, it's electric vehicle, very similar to Slate, where you build what you want. That you basically get this shell that's electric powered, and you can hang stuff on the wall with electrified walls. Really, really smart design. And that's what we're going to start seeing is more creative design.
That's exactly what I was
The
going to say.
problem I fear is that it's going to get so expensive from some of the main brands. And I think they need to really, like the Volkswagen ID Buzz, bring it down, bring the prices down, bring in more entry-level price vehicles so consumers can afford them. Because all they're doing now is they're making these super expensive cars, which makes the used car market too strong for people to buy. And that's the only option that they have. So it's very interesting to watch. We'll cover that, of course. You cover used cars, new cars. We both cover stuff for national news as well as for Car Coach Reports and for Car Smarts. And I think it's just interesting to watch the evolution of the auto industry. And don't write down below, I'm tired of hearing, oh, why don't you go back to your horse and buggy? Listen, there's going to be a mixture of propulsions. You just got to find one that works for you. And nothing is right and nothing is wrong. It's just offering all the different options.
I don't think I can have anything to follow up for that, so we'll call it here.
Okay. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate your support. And I know that people have complained about why do you have commercials? Because we have to be able to turn the lights on. I got to pay him.
We do thank you for checking out our sponsors
Yes.
in some of our other
Some
videos
really cool
here.
sponsors too, and their stuff works. I actually use this stuff that I'm
Exactly.
promoting. I'm not just saying it's good. Too bad we can't get San Pellegrino. That would be nice.
Or Monster
Or Monster. Oh,
or
yeah.
Celsius.
Celsius. Any of that works. But if you got any, you'd like to have us mention one of your brands, contact us. We'll be happy to work with you.
Absolutely.
If you have any questions, put them down below in the comments. We will be checking questions, comments. And in addition to that, like, subscribe, share this with your friends. And if you'd like to support us, you can buy us a cup of coffee. That's down below because I need a couple of
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of links down below. You can check out what we're doing.
social media.
Yep, social media. We can find you at
Lauren Fix on literally every platform that's out there. I am there.
And you can find me at PaulFix3. I primarily post on Instagram, just kind of seeing what's cool out there and sharing it with you. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.